I moved out to live with a friend after my fiancé's overbearing mom invaded our space, took over my home office as her bedroom, refused to leave for months, and now my spineless fiancé is leaving me stuck with the entire rent while he plays the good son. My partner, a 27-year-old male, and I, a 29-year-old female, have shared a home for approximately a year and a half. My partner completed his undergraduate studies, worked for a couple of years, and then pursued an MBA, which brought him to our present city. We began cohabiting after he concluded his MBA program. He originates from the Midwest, and his mother consistently wished for him to return there. When he informed her of his decision to remain here, she was quite upset. I pursued a degree in a STEM field and upon graduation, secured employment with my current organization, relocating to our present city. This is a substantial global corporation with numerous branches both domestically and internationally. I genuinely enjoy my profession. I appreciate my employer, and the compensation is quite favorable. Overall, it's a very advantageous arrangement. During the pandemic, my workplace closed, and we all transitioned to working from home. Following the pandemic, they opted not to reopen this specific office, so I've been working remotely full-time since early 2020. Presently, I earn significantly more than him, primarily due to my 7 years of experience and my involvement in the technology sector. Prior to our cohabitation, I resided alone in a one-bedroom apartment, utilizing my living room as a home office since it was just me. When we moved in together, we chose a two-bedroom apartment so I could designate the additional room as an office. Consequently, I covered 2/3 of the rent, and he paid 1/3. All other expenses were divided equally. The difficulties began this past May. My partner's mother expressed her desire to relocate to our city to be nearer to him. She inquired if she could stay with us temporarily, while seeking employment and getting settled. As a teacher, she anticipated securing a teaching position fairly quickly. Given this, I didn't particularly object to her stay, assuming it would only last a few months over the summer. Believing her visit would be brief, I relocated my office to a corner of our bedroom, and my partner purchased a bed for the second bedroom. The issue is, she never submitted applications for any teaching roles, and has now been living with us for 6 months. She and I have experienced considerable friction since her arrival. I find it impossible to make her grasp that I work full-time. She constantly interrupts me while I'm engaged in work, which is disruptive enough, but she even intrudes during my team's calls. She frequently requests that I drive her to various places, as she dislikes driving in our city. Her perspectives on gender roles are rather antiquated, and she consistently criticizes me for not contributing more to household tasks, and for expecting my partner to assist with chores and manage his own laundry. The incessant criticism and disparaging remarks are truly draining my energy. Furthermore, I detest having my workspace confined to a corner of the bedroom. In September, I informed my partner that, given his mother's extended stay, we should divide the rent 3 ways. He responded that she couldn't afford it, needing to conserve funds until she found a job. I expressed my dissatisfaction with paying extra for a bedroom I couldn't use. Ultimately, he agreed to a 50-50 split. While I could manage the additional cost, I strongly disliked the notion of subsidizing her lifestyle. Every time I voiced a complaint about her or the situation, he would agree but claim he was unsure how to proceed, stating he couldn't ask his mother to leave and wouldn't address her behavior or treatment of me. When I asked about the long-term strategy, he simply said he didn't know. I considered issuing an ultimatum for her departure, but I feared he would resent me for essentially displacing his mother. One of my friends will have a vacant room at the end of February due to her roommate moving out. Our current lease renews on June 1st. I am seriously contemplating vacating our current apartment and moving in with my friend. I can afford to cover my portion of the rent for our present apartment and half the rent at my friend's place. It's not ideal, but I'm not a lavish spender, so it's manageable. The concern is that if he and his mother cannot each cover 1/3 of the rent, they certainly couldn't manage the entire amount on their own. However, I can no longer tolerate this living situation. So, I am fairly certain this is my course of action. I wanted to gauge opinions on whether leaving them in this manner would be considered unfair. Update 1. I posted here last week regarding my living predicament with my soon-to-be ex-fiancé and his mother. For those interested, the original post is available. Initially, I attempted to respond to every comment and keep up, but frankly, I became completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of feedback. First and foremost, I want to extend my gratitude to everyone for their input and comments, even those that were somewhat harsh. In fact, perhaps especially the harsh ones. I truly needed some blunt honesty to recognize that I was allowing my future ex and his mother to exploit me. The more comments I read, the more infuriated I became. Honestly, I believe I'm more upset with myself for permitting this to occur, and for not asserting myself more effectively. This past weekend, I managed to get my soon-to-be ex alone for a discussion, which proved more challenging than it should have been, as his mother consistently tries to accompany us whenever we do anything. Reviewing all the comments and private messages people sent genuinely helped me formulate my approach, and also raised many pertinent questions I should have considered myself. Returning to the conversation with my ex, I wanted to offer him one final opportunity to prioritize our relationship over his mother. Not because I anticipated he would, but simply so I could tell myself I provided the chance. I reiterated my profound unhappiness with the situation, explaining how it was impacting my work due to her constant interruptions and my general discomfort and dissatisfaction from being forced to work from a corner in our bedroom. I also reminded him that until recently, I was paying the majority of the rent, and given my significantly higher income, it is essentially my earnings that sustain us all. Furthermore, I again brought up the way she treats and speaks to me. He responded in the same manner he had before. He agreed that her behavior was inappropriate, and that it was genuinely uncomfortable for all of us. What on earth? I don't care if she's uncomfortable. Previously, I would have dropped the subject there. But this time, I expressed my anger and disappointment that he allowed me to pay 2/3 of the rent when she first moved in, and how unjust it was that I am still contributing half when 3 individuals reside there, and she is the only one with her own bedroom. It was the same narrative. She needs to conserve money as she currently has no income. This prompted the question of where all her belongings went when she moved and what funds she uses for miscellaneous expenses. Apparently, when she divorced, she initiated the divorce after my ex went off to college. It seems her husband, my ex's father, did not desire the divorce. His father bought out her equity in their home. My ex had no idea how much that amounted to or how much remains. However, until she moved here, she was employed full-time as a teacher and lived in a small apartment, so she should not have had to significantly draw upon the divorce settlement funds. Beyond that, my ex had little insight into her finances, other than her assertion that she needed to conserve money. I informed him directly that I am moving out before the end of the month. From now on, I will only be paying 25%. As some commenters pointed out, she occupies an entire bedroom while I must share with an immature man, so she should contribute twice as much. After I move out, I will not be covering any other expenses. No utilities, no food, nothing beyond rent. I have a fairly good understanding of his financial situation. If he has to cover 75% of the rent by himself, it will consume a substantial portion of his net income. After paying for utilities and groceries, there will be nothing left for incidentals. Rent was due on the 1st, but it's not considered late until after the 5th, so he has 2 days to come up with the funds. If he fails to do so and I end up covering it, I will reduce the amount I pay in subsequent months. The sole reason I will continue to pay any rent is that even after I vacate, I remain legally responsible. I spoke with the leasing office and they clarified that since my ex and I signed a single rental agreement, meaning one contract we both endorsed, as opposed to 2 individual contracts, we are both accountable for the rent. They are indifferent to who actually pays as long as it is settled. The only alternative would be if he agrees to sign a new lease by himself or jointly with his mother. However, it is highly probable he would not pass the credit check on his own, so I am somewhat constrained. I don't anticipate him doing anything foolish, as he will need to secure alternative housing after this, and a collection on his credit report would be detrimental. I also informed him that I will find a place to work during the day until I move, so she cannot disturb me. My friend, with whom I am moving, offered her place as a daytime workspace since she and her current roommate work in person 9 to 5 jobs. I have accepted her offer for now. After living with his mother, I am not inclined to overstay my welcome, so I will explore other options I can rotate through. Someone suggested checking out the public library, or if necessary, I will acquire a membership at one of those co-working spaces. Just as a precaution, I brought my important documents, files, and valuables, and my friend is safeguarding them for me until I move in. He did not react well at all. The surprising aspect to me was his apparent shock at everything. He seemed genuinely astonished that I was not prioritizing his mother. I truly felt he sincerely believed I wanted to care for her as much as I cared for him. He repeatedly uttered phrases like, "What about my mom? What am I going to tell her? That's just how she is, but we still need to help her," and so forth. He inquired about our relationship and the engagement. I told him that after I move out, I require some distance from him. In a few months, once we have both had time and space to process what transpired, if we both agree, we can discuss the relationship, but he would need to demonstrate his unwavering support going forward and establish clear boundaries with his mother. I conveyed this simply to avert further conflict, but I do not envision a future where we are together. I instructed him that he needs to inform his mother, as she is neither my responsibility nor my problem, and she will realize something is amiss when I begin moving my belongings. He has not yet told her what is happening, but this weekend I will commence moving items, so he has limited time. My friend's current roommate is starting a new job in another state on the 3rd, so realistically, I can probably move in within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on when she actually departs. I don't expect him to do anything malicious other than sulk and complain. However, if he does something foolish or fails to pay his portion of the rent, my trump card is that I will inform the leasing office that his mother has been residing there in violation of the lease agreement. Honestly, being evicted would resolve many of my current issues, so I believe it's a quite valid threat. Now that I have mentally and emotionally detached myself from him and his mother, I am looking forward to her reaction when he tells her what's transpiring. If it becomes too unpleasant, I will find an inexpensive Airbnb or hotel or similar accommodation. Some friends, including the one I'm moving in with, have offered to let me couchsurf for a few weeks, but I simply cannot impose that on someone else. So that's the situation. I am leaving and I genuinely do not care how it impacts them. Update 2. Hello everyone. I've received numerous requests for updates, so I wanted to inform everyone about how things unfolded when my ex's mother discovered my reduced rent contribution and my impending departure. Last week, I began working from my friend's apartment, the one I'm moving into. Consequently, I didn't see my ex's mother on Monday. On Tuesday around lunchtime, she sent me a text inquiring about my whereabouts. I told her I was working and would be home late that night. She replied that my ex had informed her I wouldn't be contributing as much, so she had to lend him money for rent. That did not come as a surprise to me, so I simply responded with an emoji. I had plans with my friend and her roommate, who is also a friend, to go out for dinner and then have some drinks. So by the time I arrived home, it was past midnight, and my ex's mother was already asleep. The real excitement began Wednesday morning. I was preparing to go to work at my friend's place when my ex's mother intercepted me and declared, "We need to discuss my financial situation." She then launched into a lengthy tirade about her having to cover my portion of the rent, my making imprudent choices by dining out when I couldn't even afford rent, and how I was irresponsible with money and inconsiderate of its impact on others. Blah blah blah. She proceeded to state that if she were to pay my share of the rent, she expected me to do a better job of staying on top of chores and maintaining a clean and organized apartment. I informed her I was moving out, as it was evident my soon-to-be ex had not yet told her. She seemed, pleased with herself. All she had to say was, "Perhaps that's for the best." When I returned home that evening, she immediately wanted to talk. She suggested that instead of me moving out, we could secure a larger apartment, and she would be willing to cover the difference in cost between a 2-bedroom and a 3-bedroom. Then we could revert to the previous arrangement my ex and I had before she moved in. Me paying 2/3 of the balance and him paying 1/3. Honestly, as she was saying this, I think my brain temporarily ceased functioning. She made it sound as though she was doing us a favor by offering to pay the increase in rent. Apparently, this immature man, who shares literally every detail about our lives and relationship with his mother, had not bothered to inform her how much I was actually contributing. It seems that once she realized my ex wasn't covering everything as she had assumed, she wasn't as enthusiastic about my departure. I attempted to be polite and told her I had already given notice to our apartment complex that I was moving out at the end of the month and had already committed to moving in with my friend. She continued to press the issue, stating that if she was willing to pay the difference, I should simply stay because that would genuinely be best for everyone. By then, I was becoming irritated and told her that due to her behavior and treatment of me, I had no desire to live with her anymore. That's when the most remarkable statement of this entire chaotic situation emerged from her mouth. She said she was concerned I was taking advantage of her son, and that if we had informed her about our financial arrangement, she would have been more understanding of why I wasn't maintaining the apartment. I told her perhaps a valuable lesson from this is to endeavor to be pleasant to everyone in the future, not just those you believe can assist you. And I asked her why she didn't help out more, given that she wasn't engaged in anything productive all day. She did not appreciate either of those comments, and the situation became quite hostile, with both of us yelling at each other. To be fair, we both uttered some truly terrible things to one another. Finally, I told her I was going to inform the rental office that she had been living there in contravention of the lease agreement because getting evicted would be worth it to witness her living on the street. I grabbed my laptop and went to my friend's place. I didn't even bother packing an overnight bag. The next afternoon, Thursday, my ex texted me and said he had added his mother to the lease, effective the 1st of the month, and that she and his father, I have no idea how that poor man got entangled in this. Would pay half the rent and my ex would pay the other half. I confirmed with the property manager that I was removed from the lease and had no further obligation. I obtained this confirmation via email from my records. I placed disconnection orders for the utilities under my name and instructed him to call and establish accounts under his name. I will forfeit the damaged deposit. It goes to whoever is residing there when the lease concludes, but it's a small price to pay for my freedom. On my way home, I stopped and acquired a stack of boxes to pack my belongings. She was quite hostile when I arrived home, and when she observed how much I was taking, her demeanor worsened. I ended up taking Friday off to complete my packing, and on Saturday, I enlisted some friends to help move my possessions to my new residence. I plan to pay my friend some rent for the next 2 weeks until the other person moves out. They didn't want me to, but I refused to stay in someone's home without contributing. If nothing else, living with my ex and his mother taught me that. Last night, my ex and I met and spoke for the first time since Saturday. He said his mother is staying until June, when the lease expires, then she is returning to their hometown. According to him, she simply disliked living here, which is why she didn't attempt to find employment. Then he inquired how long of a break he thought we should take. A few commenters had criticized me for leading him on. So, I was brutally honest and told him I could not be with someone who permitted others to treat me the way he allowed his mother to treat me, and that I hoped he learned to be independent and establish some boundaries. He appeared on the verge of tears and simply got up and left. As far as I am concerned, this entire ordeal is concluded. I will consider it a learning experience and be grateful I discovered how dreadful my ex's mother is before we married. The thing that astounds me is the extent of damage this woman leaves in her wake, and how utterly oblivious she remains. She destroyed our engagement and relationship, is leaving my ex in a much worse financial predicament, and likely pushed back her ex-husband's retirement by an unknown number of years since he probably now has to pay off a mortgage or second mortgage he had to acquire to pay her half of the equity, and she made my life miserable for over 6 months. And she is walking away completely unharmed. According to my ex, she is returning to her hometown and resuming her old teaching job. I am considering visiting my parents next week and working from their house. I want to tell them how uneventful and undramatic their lives are, and how profoundly grateful and loving I am for that. Update 3. I haven't posted here because honestly, there hasn't been any significant drama or new developments since my last post. However, several people have messaged me asking for an update, so I thought I'd let everyone know how everything concluded. If you haven't seen it, you can find the backstory in my profile. After I moved out of my ex's and my place, I did end up visiting my parents for a while. It was primarily to give the girl whose lease I was taking over space to pack and move her belongings. It was wonderful to visit with my parents. They were incredibly supportive about everything and the choices I made. My mom and I spent an entire Sunday afternoon on the couch watching terrible Hallmark movies, while my dad plied us with far too many mojitos. I've been living with my friend for about 4 months now, and everything has been going splendidly. I feel like we are both exceptionally respectful and considerate of each other, which has made everything so effortless and calm. After dealing with my ex's mother for such a long time, it was somewhat of a shock not to have all the drama and negativity. I did hear from my ex's mother 3 times after I moved out. The first time she texted to ask if I had taken the air fryer. I had, it was mine. Then, a couple of weeks later, she texted asking me for a ride to the pharmacy to pick up her prescriptions. And then she texted one last time telling me I needed to pay my May portion of the utilities for the last month I lived there. I ignored her the first 2 times, and the last time I responded that she should either use the money she saved while I was covering her rent or use the money they received back from the damage deposit. It has been silent ever since. I did see my ex one last time about 6 weeks ago. He found some of my belongings that I had accidentally left behind, so we met up for him to return them to me. I was glad we met because it solidified my conviction that I had made the right decision. I felt nothing upon seeing him except relief that I no longer needed to deal with his mother. He asked if I would be willing to give our relationship another try if he established boundaries with his mother. I was honest and told him that I no longer viewed him in that way, and did not wish to reconcile. He appeared to anticipate that answer and did not make a fuss. He did say that after I left, things with his mother became quite strained. I gather finances were tight, which I knew would happen, and she was upset that due to his job, he couldn't drive her around and cater to her needs. He said she ended up moving back to their hometown at the beginning of May, which was the final month of their lease. He said he was going to move back also once the lease was up because his friends were all in the middle of leases and already had roommates. He didn't want to live with a stranger, and the only apartments he could afford on his own were studios in truly undesirable areas. So, he is returning home to live with his father. He didn't have a job there yet, but he figured it was the safest option. He has his MBA and almost 2 years of work experience since graduating, so he is hopeful that will assist him in finding new employment reasonably quickly. I feel somewhat bad for him because he loves it here, and his hometown isn't particularly appealing. I didn't feel too bad though, since it is truly his own fault everything unfolded this way. He did not mention how or what his mother was doing, and I did not inquire. I haven't seen or heard from him since then. I am quite clear that I was not interested in trying again, and I do not wish to be friends, as I simply do not need the drama. I've been on a couple of casual dates, but truthfully, I'm not seeking anything serious right now. I'm just enjoying spending time with friends, taking advantage of the summer by going hiking and similar activities. I've spent some time reflecting on everything. I believe if I had been more assertive earlier on and stood up for myself, insisted that she pay rent, and not allowed her to overstay, perhaps all of this could have been avoided. But I am glad I no longer have to deal with her. So, I am content with how everything concluded. Cheers and be well. Update 4. Hello Reddit. It's been a while, but if you followed my predicament, you know it's been, shall we say, eventful. I honestly intended to let this discussion fade away, but the past few months have taken some truly bizarre turns, and I thought, well, you all might find the next chapter amusing. So fast forward to late summer. I'm still residing with my friend, now officially my roommate, as we both decided to renew our lease here for another year, working remotely, occasionally browsing dating applications, but mostly finally appreciating the simple pleasure of cooking for one and hiking without needing to check in with anyone. I hadn't heard a peep from my ex or, mercifully, his mother for a considerable period, aside from the now infamous air fryer text. Mid-July, I'm deeply engrossed in a Teams call when I receive a LinkedIn message. That's not unusual. Recruiters, former colleagues, typical stuff. Except this one is from my ex's mother. Yes, his mother. She somehow located my LinkedIn profile. The message read word for word. I obviously screenshotted it. Hi, my name. I hope you're well. I wanted to ask, do you know if your company is hiring for any support roles? I've been looking to move back to city, as I've realized it's where I feel happiest and I'm ready for a new chapter. Would appreciate any advice. Followed by her name. First of all, what? After months of complete silence, she's networking. I stared at that message for so long my monitor went into sleep mode. My roommate thought I was having a medical emergency. Between the sheer audacity and the subtle implication that after completely destroying my relationship and treating me like unpaid domestic help for months, she'd like a little assistance from yours truly. I did not reply. Instead, I checked her profile, which confirmed she had listed herself as a private tutoring education consultant and tagged our city as her desired location. I felt equally mortified and hysterical. If the universe intended to test my commitment to keeping drama out of my life, this was it. I left it alone for a week, but she then followed up. Just checking in. Would love to connect if you're available. No acknowledgement of our past. Just business as usual. Also, my company does not hire non-locals for office support roles, but the thought of having her as a colleague briefly made me consider a career change to, I don't know, underwater welding. A little backstory filled in by a mutual friend. Apparently, her move back home lasted only 6 weeks before she realized she missed city life and moved in with a cousin here. But surprise, not many teaching jobs opened up randomly in August, especially with the school year just about to commence. Sources, okay, my ex's cousin posted this on Facebook, say she was job hunting without much success, driving another household crazy. History, it seems, repeats itself. Meanwhile, my ex actually did move back to their hometown. And plot twist, it seems his father is flourishing. A little bird from the hometown says my ex's dad is dating again. Good for him. He finally took that retirement trip to Alaska. And here's the best part. He rented out a room in the house for extra income, reportedly to a dance instructor, which is simply delightful. My ex himself, however, has been less fortunate. He pinged me once just a hey, hope you're well. And then, get this, sent me a Venmo request for $54.71. No explanation, just the amount. It turns out it was for a box of tools I left behind in a closet, which his father needed to ship back at considerable postage. I politely declined the request. I mean, honestly, it's been months and those tools probably weren't even worth the shipping cost. Also, if you're reading this, perhaps don't ship heavy tools across the country. I then reminded myself that boundaries are indeed a valid concept, and life is better on my side of them. But the real revelation came in late August when I encountered my former property manager at the farmer's market. She was operating a children's face painting stall because, apparently, everyone in my old life is interconnected. She whispered to me, I swear, as if it were a spy novel, that after I moved out there was an incident. Apparently, my ex's mother had persuaded her cousin's family and a friend, also from her hometown, to all temporarily reside at the apartment after the cousin evicted her, which quite comically resulted in 4 adults living in a 2-bedroom unit. A neighbor reported them for excessive noise, karaoke after midnight on a Wednesday according to legend, and, wait for it, lease violations. Long story short, the property manager said the entire situation was handled, and the last of them departed in a U-Haul towards the end of the month, which I interpret as a cosmic nod. In the interim, I received a promotion at work. All the additional time and focus gained from not policing house guests and cleaning up after adults supposedly old enough to know better apparently paid off. My roommate and I hosted a Halloween party. The theme was bizarre family reunions, which my friends assure me was a direct form of catharsis on my part. Someone appeared as a judge. Several came as warring siblings, but nobody dressed up as an entitled Midwestern mother or a financially oblivious MBA graduate because, honestly, who could accurately portray them? I've started dating someone. It's early, but he's a bartender with a dog and no living parents within a 300-mile radius. He calls his own mother, enjoys cooking, and considers family drama to be watching Netflix documentaries. I haven't heard from my ex or his mother since. She's allegedly teaching pre-kindergarten part-time in the suburbs and, according to her Facebook, rediscovering myself in a dynamic new environment, which, judging by the background of her profile picture, appears to be an Olive Garden. The entire ordeal, in retrospect, feels like something I endured rather than truly lived. But more than anything, I learned that renting an apartment is straightforward, but renting out your boundaries is a terrible investment. If you're still reading these updates, go embrace your uneventful, undramatic parents. They are a true treasure. If anything else extraordinary occurs, or if I spot her wandering the produce aisle examining artichokes, I promise to report back. But for now, my air fryer, my life, and my mental well-being are all operating at 100%.